The ultimate workplace revenge. My coworker tried to steal my promotion by sabotaging my presentation to the CEO. But I discovered her plan beforehand. So when she stood up to give her presentation using my stolen work, I played a video on the conference room screen showing her confessing everything. She got fired on the spot and I got promoted to her manager. The betrayal started on a Thursday afternoon in March. I was working late again, the office mostly empty except for the security guard and the persistent hum of the air conditioning. I had been grinding for 6 months on the most important project of my career, a comprehensive digital transformation strategy for our Fortune 500 company. The presentation was scheduled for Monday morning, directly to the CEO and the entire executive board. This wasn't just any presentation. It was the presentation that would determine who got the VP of Digital Strategy position that had just opened up. I'd been competing with my colleague Jessica Martinez for this role for over a year. On paper, we were evenly matched, same education, similar experience, both high performers. But I knew my strategy was revolutionary. I had spent months researching, analyzing data, conducting interviews with department heads, and crafting a proposal that could save the company millions while positioning us ahead of our competitors. Jessica had been acting strange lately. She'd hover near my desk when I took calls about the project, asking casual questions about my progress, offering to help with research I never requested. I attributed it to friendly competition and professional curiosity. I was naive. The truth hit me like a freight train the following Monday, just 3 hours before my presentation. I arrived at the office early, around 6 a.m., to do final rehearsals. As I settled into my cubicle with my coffee, I noticed my computer was slightly askew. The monitor had been moved. My paranoia kicked in and I checked my recent file activity. My blood ran cold. Someone had accessed my presentation files over the weekend. Not just viewed them, copied them. The digital trail showed that my main presentation file, along with all supporting documents, spreadsheets, and research notes, had been transferred to a USB drive on Saturday at 11:47 p.m. The computer logs showed it was accessed using my login credentials, but I had been at my sister's wedding that entire weekend, 2 states away. My hands were shaking as I dug deeper. I found keylogger software installed on my machine, sophisticated stuff that could capture passwords and screen recordings. This wasn't some random hacker. This was someone with physical access to my computer and enough technical knowledge to install surveillance software. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Jessica had been staying late recently, always finding excuses to linger around the office. She'd been asking me about my password policy just last week under the pretense of improving office security. She had somehow figured out my login and had been watching my every move for weeks. I sat there staring at my screen, feeling violated and furious. 6 months of my life, my innovative ideas, my analysis, my conclusions, all stolen. But more than that, Jessica was planning to present my work to the CEO and the board as her own. She was going to steal my promotion using my own research. The rage was overwhelming, but I forced myself to think strategically. I had 3 hours before the presentations began. Jessica was scheduled to present first at 9 a.m., followed by me at 10 a.m. She probably assumed I wouldn't notice the theft until after her presentation, by which point it would be too late. But Jessica had made one critical error. She didn't know that I had been recording myself practicing my presentations all week. I'm an introvert by nature, and speaking to executives terrifies me. So I'd been using my phone to record practice sessions to improve my delivery. Those recordings clearly showed me presenting the exact same material she had stolen, with timestamps from the previous week. I also realized something else. If Jessica had been keylogging my computer, she might have captured more than just passwords. I checked my email, and sure enough, she'd probably seen my correspondence with external consultants, my requests for specific data from other departments, even my notes about potential weaknesses in her approach to the project. A cold, calculating calm settled over me. Jessica wanted to play dirty? Fine. But she had picked the wrong person to betray. I spent the next hour crafting my counterattack. First, I created a new presentation, one that not only showcased my original work but also demonstrated how I had developed these ideas over time. I included a timeline showing my research process, screenshots of my early drafts, and email correspondences that proved the chronology of my work. But the centerpiece of my plan was more personal. I decided to give Jessica exactly what she wanted, the chance to present her brilliant strategy to the CEO. And I was going to let her hang herself with my own rope. At 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before Jessica's presentation, I knocked on the conference room door. The CEO, David Chun, was already there with 5 other executives, reviewing materials. "David, sorry to interrupt," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I have some concerns about potential intellectual property issues with today's presentations. I think you should see this before we begin." I showed him the computer logs, the evidence of the keylogger, and the file access records. I played the recordings of me practicing the presentation, clearly dated from the previous week. David's expression grew darker with each piece of evidence. "Are you telling me that Jessica Martinez has stolen your presentation?" he asked. "I'm presenting facts and letting you draw your own conclusions," I replied. "But I think it would be educational to see what she presents, and then compare it to my own work." David was a former prosecutor before moving into business. He understood evidence and he could smell blood in the water. "Interesting," he said. "Let's see how this plays out. But don't interrupt her presentation. Let her finish completely." At exactly 9 a.m., Jessica walked into the conference room with supreme confidence. She was wearing her best suit, her hair perfectly styled, carrying herself like someone who was about to deliver the performance of her career. She had no idea that the CEO was now watching her with the intensity of a hawk studying its prey. "Good morning, everyone," Jessica began, her voice smooth and professional. "I'm excited to share my comprehensive digital transformation strategy with you today. I've spent months developing this approach, and I believe it will revolutionize how we do business." I watched from the back of the room as she launched into my presentation. Every slide, every conclusion, every innovative insight, she delivered it all as if she had conceived every word herself. She was good, I'll give her that. Her delivery was confident, her explanations clear. If I hadn't known she was presenting stolen work, I might have been impressed. For 45 minutes, Jessica presented my 6 months of research and analysis. She fielded questions expertly, using the deep knowledge she had gained from spying on my work. Several executives nodded approvingly. She was selling it perfectly. "And in conclusion," Jessica said, advancing to the final slide, "I believe this strategy will not only meet our digital transformation goals but exceed them, positioning us as an industry leader while generating substantial cost savings. Thank you for your time and consideration." The room applauded politely. Jessica beamed with satisfaction, probably thinking she had just secured her promotion. "Excellent presentation, Jessica," David said, his voice neutral. "Very thorough, very well researched. You clearly put a lot of work into this." "Thank you, David. I'm passionate about this project, and I wanted to make sure I covered every angle." "Oh, I'm sure you covered every angle," David replied, and I caught the slight edge in his voice. "Before we break, I wonder if you could help us understand your research methodology. Walk us through how you developed these insights." Jessica's confidence flickered for just a moment. "Well, I conducted extensive interviews with department heads, analyzed our current systems, researched industry best practices." "Interesting. And when did you conduct these interviews?" "Over the past several months. I wanted to be thorough." David nodded slowly. "I see. And the data analysis you presented, that must have taken considerable time to compile." "Yes, absolutely. Weeks of work." "Fascinating." David's smile was predatory now. "Jessica, I have to ask, are you familiar with industrial espionage laws?" The question hit the room like a bomb. Jessica's face went white. "I'm sorry, what?" "Industrial espionage. Corporate theft. Stealing proprietary work from colleagues. Are you familiar with these concepts?" Jessica started stammering. I don't understand what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Jessica. I'm stating facts." David turned to the presentation screen and connected his laptop. "Everyone, I'd like you to watch something." He played the recording of me practicing my presentation from the previous week. The timestamp was clearly visible. My voice filled the room, presenting the exact same strategy, the same slides, the same conclusions that Jessica had just claimed as her own work. The silence in the room was deafening. Every executive was staring at Jessica, whose face had gone from white to green. She looked like she might vomit. This recording was made 6 days ago, David continued. We also have computer logs showing that Jessica accessed these files using stolen login credentials, along with evidence of keylogger software installed on our employee's machine. There must be some mistake, Jessica whispered. The only mistake, David said coldly, was thinking you could steal 6 months of someone else's work and present it as your own to the CEO of this company. The room exploded. The other executives started talking at once, their voices a mix of shock and outrage. The CFO was shaking his head in disgust. The head of legal was already taking notes, probably calculating the company's liability. Jessica, David said, cutting through the noise. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. We'll be conducting a full investigation, and depending on what we find, we may be pressing criminal charges. Jessica tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around the room desperately, as if searching for an ally, but every face was cold and disgusted. She had committed the ultimate professional betrayal, and everyone knew it. 2 security guards appeared at the door as if by magic. Jessica gathered her materials with shaking hands and walked out, her career in ruins. After she left, David turned to me. I believe you have a presentation to give us. Actually, I said, I've prepared something a bit different. I spent the next hour not just presenting my strategy, but explaining my entire research and development process. I showed them how I had built the analysis from the ground up, the iterations I had gone through, the obstacles I had overcome. It wasn't just a presentation of conclusions, it was a masterclass in strategic thinking. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then David started clapping, and the rest of the executives joined in. That, David said, was exceptional. Not just the strategy but the process, the depth of thinking, the innovation. This is exactly the kind of leadership we need. 3 days later I got the call. Not only was I getting the VP of Digital Strategy position, but they were giving me Jessica's entire team to manage as well. The irony was delicious. She had tried to steal my promotion, and instead had handed me hers. Update 1, the investigation. The company's investigation into Jessica's actions was swift and thorough. IT discovered that she had been conducting corporate espionage for months, not just against me but against several other colleagues. The keylogger on my computer was just one of several she had installed throughout the office. The legal department determined that she had violated multiple federal laws, including the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. They offered her a choice: quietly resign and sign a non-disclosure agreement, or face criminal prosecution. She chose the former, but by then the story had already spread throughout the industry. Her reputation was destroyed. Update 2, the promotion. My first day as VP was surreal. I was now managing the department Jessica had tried to infiltrate, overseeing the very people she had manipulated for information. Several of them approached me privately to apologize. They had unknowingly fed her information about my project, thinking she was just being collegial. The digital transformation strategy one had developed was implemented company-wide. Within 6 months, it had saved the company over $3 million and positioned us ahead of our main competitors. David personally credited me with revolutionary thinking in the company newsletter. Final update: 6 months later. Jessica never recovered professionally. Word had spread through industry networks about her corporate espionage, and she became unhireable in our field. Last I heard, she had moved to another state and taken a job in retail management, a far cry from the executive position she had tried to steal. As for me, I'm thriving. The promotion came with a 60% salary increase, stock options, and a corner office with a view. More importantly, I learned to trust my instincts and protect my work. I've since been promoted again to Senior VP, and I'm being considered for the C-suite. The best part? Every time I walk past the conference room where Jessica tried to present my stolen work, I smile. She thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Turns out I was playing 4D chess while she was playing with fire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about letting them destroy themselves while you rise above it all. Jessica's betrayal didn't just fail. It catapulted me to heights I might never have reached otherwise. And that, as they say, is justice served.